Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Deep Dive Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Wolfson. Today I've got a great episode lined up for you guys. I'm speaking with Chandler Fang. He is the founder of t54, which is building the infrastructure to ensure that agentic commerce is trustless. So this is such an exciting episode because Chandler shares a lot of information about what agentic commerce is, what that economy looks like, how agents are soon going to be transacting with other agents on behalf of humans. So I encourage you guys to listen to this entire episode because it is really insightful and interesting in terms of how the agentic economy is shaping up. Before getting started with today's interview, I also want to take the time to remind you guys to smash that like button, hit subscribe. I want you to stay in touch because I've got so much great content coming your way and I don't want you to miss anything. Without further ado, let's get started with today's interview. Hey, Chandler, how's it going?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Rachel.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming on the show. I'm really excited to speak to you to learn more about your background and what t54 is doing. So I was really looking forward to this interview.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. Yeah.
Wonderful. Before we get started, Chandler, maybe tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your background, and then I can go into some tougher questions.
Sure. All right. Let's start with easier ones. So Chandler Fang, I'm the founder of t54 Labs. And we started the company in January 2025. But before doing that, a quick recap of my career. So after I graduated from UC Berkeley, I started my career in JP Morgan. So I was a quant trader originally. I was doing stock, derivative pricing, all the trading stuff, and also the risk management for the capital market. But then back to 2019 within JP Morgan, I joined the JP Morgan AI and blockchain team called Onyx, ONYX. Now they rebranded now. But back then, we were working on a lot of AI payment products for JP Morgan corporate clients. And we have developed a lot of the things using the legacy AI technologies. You know, it's before Transformer, before the large language model. But still, we are having more than a few thousand clients are using our product. And fast forward to 2021, I joined Ripple. The XRP issuers also is huge for the cross-border payment network they built. I was involved in their early stage when building up this entire cross-border payment network, pretty much from 0 to 1 and 200. So within my 4 years experience in Ripple, we successfully boost the volume from $100 million to more than $20 billion annually using the cross-border payment network we built called RippleNet on top of blockchains and using XRP and stable coins. So that's kind of my holistic, kind of like career. And currently I'm based in Silicon Valley. And back to the 2024 second half, when we're living in a bubble of like AI stuff, within Silicon Valley, we really soon realized there's a huge opportunity to build up an AI ecosystem utilizing blockchain and stable coins for AI agent payments. That's how we get things started in early 2025.
Got it. Wow. You have an impressive background. And I remember, because I've been covering crypto and blockchain since 2017, I remember JP Morgan, Onyx when they first started. And then obviously I know Ripple quite well. So that's impressive that you were with both of those teams. And did you help build out that tech for them? Is that what you were doing?
Mean within JP Morgan?
Right. Yes.
So within JP Morgan, within the Onyx team, we have AI side and we have the blockchain side.
Okay.
So I was on the AI side.
Okay, got it.
The blockchain team actually built the JP Morgan coin, if you heard about that terms, and do this kind of internal banking settlement. But that was my early days to get involved in a little bit of blockchain technologies. Yeah.
And then at Ripple, what was your role there?
Yeah, I was a product manager directly in charge of their cross-border payment network called Ripple Payment.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, so tell us a little bit about t54, when the company was founded and why you started it.
Great question. So everything started with Silicon Valley, where back to 2023, especially 2024, since the ChatGPT came out, everybody was talking about like AGI, people, especially within Silicon Valley, we are living in a bubble. We have to admit that. So people are thinking about, okay, agent will do more and more powerful things, getting involved in our daily life. So back in that moment, when I work in Ripple, I very quickly realized, look, now most of the agents can do Q&A, can give you a lot of great knowledge, but they cannot really touch any financial transactions. Why is that? And very soon we realized, you know what? Actually, because agent usually doesn't have an identity and our financial ecosystem is human-centric, there are a lot of bells and whistles that is missing for agent to participate in our economy. So back in 2024, when I was in Ripple, I was the champion for the AI initiative, talking about like, look, we should really think about our stablecoin strategy, AI strategy. And then after talking with the leaderships, we reached an agreement and say, hey, Chandler, instead of try to do something within Ripple, why don't we support you? And you can build something beyond Ripple, move faster, and also to bring this capability to broader industry. That's why we get started in January 2025, and we were invested by Ripple as our seed investors. Plus, we also graduated from the XRP accelerator. So we have all those good lessons and learnings we can learn from Ripple, plus the other investors and the partners supporting us.
Yeah. And I just read that you raised $5 million in seed funding. That's impressive. And I didn't realize that T54 was actually just started this year in January. I mean, that's
last year, 2025.
Oh, last year. Sorry. Oh, yeah. This year is 2026.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. But yeah, congratulations on the seed funding. That's impressive.
Yes. And we are on purposely keep it on the private mode or stealth mode for quite a long time. Up until Q4 last year, we started rolling out more products. And that's the moment that we are being acknowledged by the market. But we have been building for quite a long time within this industry. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about the infrastructure that T54 is providing. Can you kind of give us some more details on how that works and why it's necessary for the agentic economy that we're currently entering today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let me take a step back by telling what is our company's value or mission, right? So the goal for T54 is we want to empower the trusted agentic economy. And I need to break down this value or slogan into two components. First of all, I want to explain what is agentic economy is. On the other side, I will explain what is the trust issue that we are currently facing within this industry. So let me use a very quick example here. Maybe, Rachel, you have your own smart vehicle, like a Tesla car, for example, right? While you're driving your Tesla car and you feel thirsty, you may call your Tesla agent, say, hey, help me try to buy a coffee for me. Look up for the close coffee shop. And then I'm going to try to you help me to buy a coffee and I'm going to drive through and pick it up, right? So during that process, your agent, who may know your current GPS location and your own preference, maybe even have your financial capability, will reach out to the merchant agents, for example, Starbucks agents, try to do a sort of the communication, and then eventually helping you to purchase a coffee. And then telling you, say, hey, Rachel, your coffee is almost ready. You should go there and just pick it up. We smooth everything out, right? So this entire process, agents are not only a chatbot. It actually participate in your daily life. And most importantly, it touches some of the financial activity, which is participating in the economy. Once there are more and more agents like that, doing all sort of things, buying a coffee, moving tickets, travel booking, or even eventually portfolio management, shoppings. We call that agentic economy. Within that problem space, now you try to ask a question about, look, when I try to ask my agent to buy a coffee for me, what's my mental process is? Typically, people start with, agent can bring me a lot of benefit. It's make my life easier, it save times, maybe they're smarter. But 99% of the audience will quickly react with one common concern is, what if my agent lose my money? What if my agent make mistake? What if the transaction went through and I'm not happy with that experience? I want to ask for a chargeback. Who should take the responsibility and liability associated with that? At the end of the day, that's a trust issue. That's what I mean about offering the trust layer for agentic finance or agentic economy. And we can talk more later about how we problem solve that. But basically, I really want to highlight that we are solely focusing on when agents are actively participating in our economy, when there are more and more financial activity associated with agents' behavior. How can we fundamentally make sure human can trust your agents? How to make sure agents are able to trust the merchant agent? They are able to trust with each other when there's real money flowed into this system.
So T54 is the trust infrastructure then, once that agent economy is built out. Is that correct?
That's right. That's correct.
Okay. It's really interesting, and it's interesting that it started last year. I mean, how close are we to seeing an agent economy where agents are just interacting with each other and transacting with each other? Because right now, and we're talking about it, right? Which is why it's like, it's interesting you started last year, but I don't think we're there yet. So what's your take on that?
Sure. So I have to say, in Silicon Valley, there's a bubble where within this bubble, I do see there are a lot of early signs, and there are some of the early use cases that are aggressively adopting the agent economy or thriving under the agent economy concept. I will give you an example quickly here. But on the other side, there are a big unmet demand, which is a lot, as you said, like there are a lot of cases that we are still not allowing agents to touch our money. And shopping, for example, people still want to own the control. But that's exactly the problem we are trying to solve. Why people still feel uncomfortable is to some degree, they think that, okay, if I give agents money and they lose my money and there's nowhere I can complain, I cannot file a legal lawsuit against the agents, right? What should I do? So back to your questions here, I think we are in the early days, but the technology is evolved so quickly. And the key bottleneck, which is preventing the wider adoption, is not the technology itself. I can give you a lot of examples later on, but it's more about we are lacking the trust layer to protect humans' financial capability and the financial money. Yep.
That makes a lot of sense. And I agree. Yes, Silicon Valley is a bubble. When I'm there, I'm back in the bubble. That's for sure. My other question for you is when we talk about agents transacting, and I've heard this a lot in the crypto industry, and you probably have as well. Agents are going to be the biggest users of stablecoins and maybe even crypto. So when we talk about agents transacting, are we talking about fiat? Are we talking about stablecoins? Are we talking about Bitcoin? Like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah. Okay. So I have the twofold of my answers. The first part is currently agents are primarily utilizing the blockchain technology and stablecoin as their primary way to move money around. But if I'm talking about a prediction, I think eventually the agent economy should be agnostic to rails. Basically, no matter it's a fiat, credit card network, or banking network, or blockchain networks, both of them or all of them are able to support agent transactions or agentic transactions. However, I do believe that blockchain technology plus stablecoin are more agent friendly, or to some degree native to agents. So I do anticipate more and more volume will be moving from fiat rails to blockchain rails to facilitate agent transactions.
Are we currently today seeing, and maybe if we are, you can give an example, agents transacting, just agent to agents transacting with stablecoins today?
Yes. Let me give you some example here. So first of all, there are three players into this agent transactions. I need to explain one by one, then we can talk about the use case here. Player number one, the agents itself. Player number two, the financial rails. Player number three is the risk layer or trust layer protecting the things holistically, right? So imagining currently there are agents that are able to reach out the other agent for pay by usage or pay by outcome services. The most typical one are, number one, purchasing large language model token. Like, hey, Rachel, I have my own agents, and then currently I'm utilizing OpenAI's API. And every time when I run out of the credit, how can I refill or top up my credit so that I'm able to continue my services? In this case, Instead of asking a human's approval, say, hey, you have to give me your credit card information, or I need you to connect the API keys. Now the agent is able to connect to a merchant agent under a protocol called X402 to spend some money to purchase a large language model token. I don't have the latest number, but there are millions of transactions happen on X402, which is between agents and agents. And the second use case is something about crypto trading or crypto portfolio management, especially for people who are holding crypto asset, especially stablecoin. They may have a question about, look, I have 1,000 USDC on my hot wallet. I want to make the best use of it. Either I can move the money to some high yield account to generate more, or I should use this $1,000 purchase some of the token, or maybe Bitcoin or Ethereum, for example, XRP, so I can make more revenue out of it. But I'm so busy and I'm relatively not sophisticated in terms of the financial trading part. Can an agent help me? There are a lot of agents that are currently available, and I see millions of transactions going through as well to fulfill that use case.
Yeah. So would you say that we're starting to see the early examples that you just mentioned, agent to agent transactions happening with crypto and stablecoins? Like, I don't think we're seeing it with fiat. Would you say it's all starting with crypto?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
And there are some underwriting reasons behind it. Number one is the blockchain plus crypto are very agent friendly. So there are a few reasons of that. Number one is most of the financial custodian on blockchain can be decentralized and permissionless. However, for traditional rails, when you want to empower agents to touch money, you have to set up a financial custody for the agents, right? And the first step to set up financial custody is KYC, stand for know your customer, right? And in this case, where is the driver license for the agents? Where is the passport for the agents, right? It doesn't exist. So fundamentally, the traditional rail doesn't allow agents to independently own any financial custodian or financial custody. But the second part is, what's the language for agents? It's usually API friendly. They use API, they use some of the standard protocol. But traditional rails, think about Chase. Can you make an API transaction utilizing Chase? Especially for wider public, they cannot. You have to log into a portal. You have to click a button. You have to consent. In this case, agents are not able to play around with this very secured UI platform. So with that said, all the financial capability in the traditional rails are not capable of handling agent transaction, even though they are changing. But on the other side, blockchain technology are uniquely native to agents capability by being API friendly, by having this permissionless custodian, and especially with stablecoin, the physical value can move across the blockchain, across different wallets under the instruction of AI agents.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear. And so going back to what t54 is doing, because you're building this trust layer. So right now, if we're starting with crypto, I'm assuming that we'll eventually get to fiat and that this is just going to be an everyday thing. When do you think we're going to see that happen?
You mean more adoption in fiat?
Yeah, yes, more like just, mainstream adoption and adoption in general, because t54 is this trust layer. So what's your prediction as to how this is actually going to advance?
It is happening right now. In case you didn't pay attention to some of the headline, Visa introduced something called Agentic commerce, right? Which is introducing the agentic capability on their credit card network. And MasterCard doing similar thing called Agentic Pay. And even recently, MasterCard done something called verifiable intent, which is making sure that when agent utilizing the credit card network, they are able to showcase what kind of the intent they are having right now. And beside the credit card rails, we heard from OpenAI and Stripe doing something called ACP protocols, and Google and Coinbase working something on X402, which is, for the record, both supporting crypto and fiat. Right. So I think this is definitely happening, and there are more and more developers and merchants are onboarding to those protocols. And we do see some of the early sign of the real world use cases are utilizing those rails, and agents are playing a critical role over there. But talking about timeline, I think 2026 is a big year. Again, back to the adoption problem, right? We just discussed about why offering a trust layer is so critical is for a lot of merchants who are not very sophisticated, doesn't really know about crypto, blockchain, but they just want to sell more coffee. And probably what they are looking for is, at the end of the day, can you give me a service that help me to protect, make sure that I know where those agents are coming from, whether the money are legitimate. And at the end of the day, there are some risk guardrail helping me to protect my business from the fraud or some of the risk behaviors. And this is the value that we are offering right now. Yeah.
Can you explain to us how you're offering that value? Like, what's the secret sauce here? As much as you can tell us, right?
Yes.
Like, I'm assuming you're working with customers or clients and they're using T54 for a trust layer. How are you providing this trust?
Yes. Great question. The most important question for today. All right. So first of all, there are 4 pillars for our product offering. I will use the same example I explained to you about coffee buying or purchase of coffee process to explain how our solutions can safeguard step by step or phase by phase. First of all, the first pillar is called agent identity and verification. It usually happened during the onboarding or the first time you start utilizing the agents, right? So Rachel, you may have a question like, oh, now I'm trying to empower my Tesla agents to have some financial capability. And in this case, we need to first underwrite the agent you are using to make sure that the agent itself is robust. This process called Know Your Agents, KYA, similar to KYC concept. We also need to do some sort of verification to make sure that the human and the agent has the binding relationship. So the agent cannot randomly claim, I'm representing Rachel and I want to buy a coffee. This is her money. And then we blindly trust this agent. Instead, we need to verify that what is the connection between the human and the agents and what is the delegation relationship looks like. So that's pillar number 1. Identity and verification. The pillar number 2 is when you start initiating instruction. I want to buy a coffee. I'm thirsty. Look up a close coffee shop. The agent will take your instruction, which is a prompt, and do all sort of reasoning and think about, okay, where's my location? Where's my owner's location? Where is the closest coffee shop? How much is the coffee? What kind of coffee the owner may like? Right? So during this process, the agent actually do something translating from an intent, which is from a human being, to a mandate that to initiate a financial transaction. Our second pillar called risk and fraud detection is basically review this entire process on a real-time basis. We behave as a third party while representing Rachel, your interest to make sure that the agent are truly, number 1, buying a coffee. Number 2, doesn't spend $30 to buy a coffee with a reasonable price and reaching out to the right merchants. It's our Starbucks shop, not like a movie ticket or movie or theater, right? So this is something need to happen on a real-time basis so we can make sure that the agent are doing the financial transaction in a very responsible way under certain guardrail. If something smells bad, we're going to block the transaction or flag it to the network or to you, say, hey, Rachel, your agent may be doing something weird. Do you want to double check? That's step number 2. When the transaction getting into the merchant side, think about Starbucks, say, oh, I saw an agent representing Rachel because it's proved by t54, I can trust this agent. By the way, the transaction is legitimate, right? It is purchasing coffee, is representing humans' need. I should honor that services. If everything has finished and the coffee is being delivered or you already pick up the coffee and you sip it and say, oh, actually, this is not the coffee I'm looking for. This is a lemonade. It's a wrong purchase, right? How do we handle the dispute? That's the third step, number 3. We are offering kind of the credit product and insurance product to protect this entire payment transaction. If something goes wrong, who is the party bearing the liability? Who is the party cover the loss? and what is the audible trails or the logs to make sure that proving it is agent's mistake or human's mistake or merchant's mistake. So at least we can finalize the owner of that. That's step number 3. And take a step back. After we've gone through the entire process, no matter you are a merchant or human being, we are offering a one unified platform that is payment protocol agnostic, agent protocol agnostic, and real agnostic as well, which is we are basically connecting to different AI agents, different rails, blockchains, Base, Solana, XRPL, or credit card rails. As long as it's an agent financial activities, we are in a ready position to review those transactions, make sure identity is legitimate, and handling the dispute and charge back if something goes wrong.
So it's interesting that everything you just explained, it sounds like there's a human or there's humans in the loop here. It's not just agents transacting and interacting with agents, like there is a human element with T54. Is that correct?
That's not the assumption, or that's one of the scenario we are supporting.
Okay.
You raise a brilliant question where industry are currently debating or discussing about, which is within the agentic economy, there could be 2 types of transactions. One is human in the loop, which is agent assisted transactions, versus human not in the loop, which is agent autonomous transaction. Actually, T54, we are supporting both, but for the sake of explaining, a typical agentic transaction, I'm using the example of human in the loop. But on the other side, you actually open a Pandora box, which is most of the questions around agent transactions are about the agent's autonomous power. What if human not present, but agent did something? And this is actually the biggest value we are able to contribute. But from the adoption perspective, it takes a little bit longer period of time. First of all, most of human may feel comfortable that I can review the transaction, let it go through. But then later on, like Rachel, maybe you are driving, you are very busy, right? Or you may be having a call with someone. You don't want agent to bother you. $6 is not a big deal. Agent can make the decision on behalf of you, which is agent autonomous transaction. The risk part is even trickier. There are a lot of scenarios we uncover that we didn't anticipate. But that is the core value that T54 can even contribute to. Yeah.
Yeah. Another question I wanted to ask you when you were explaining the use cases would be, in order for these agents to transact and buy coffee at Starbucks, wouldn't Starbucks have to have an agent on their end as well? And if so, when are we going to start seeing that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good question. I think we are seeing something quite soon. Google recently launched a UCP protocol along with Shopify. What it does is basically Google and Shopify bring in all their merchants and most importantly, their inventory data into an agent native protocol or agent native network, allowing agent to discover, hey, I want to buy a coffee. What is the available agent native coffee shop or coffee services I could reach out to? And between these 2 agents, they are able to speak the same language, which is they have the same standard called UCP, right? It is happening at least on the protocol level. Now we are seeing merchants are gradually onboarded. Starbucks, maybe they are a later stage adopters. They are making the adoption in the later stage because they are here. They need to consider about the entire network and there are bigger friction over there. But I think for smaller coffee shop, this thing's definitely going to happen this year. Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive. No, I think it would be cool to actually try that. I'm sure next time I'm in the Bay Area or San Francisco, maybe I'd be able to do that. That might be a starting place for all of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What about institutions using this? Because we're talking a lot about, retail, people like myself, right? I want to buy a coffee, but how would institutions use this agent to agent transacting and interacting feature?
Yes. First of all, you are very unique, Rachel, which is you are very into AI as a technology and you are the early adopter. If we classify you as one of the user persona more willing to test the latest technology, right? But if I take a step back, if you look around all the normal human beings around us, a lot of people doesn't really know AI, but they are open to enjoy the benefit if there is a big protection to make sure agent doesn't lose their money. What I mean by that is to fulfill those people's use case. Like I'm relatively naive. I don't really know, doesn't really into this agent behavior. But as long as I want to make a coffee shop transactions and someone covers me, that would be great. And the someone in this case is usually the institutions, which is going back to your question there. No matter credit card network or the financial rails, especially on the merchant side, they are having stronger motivation, especially the further down the road, to protect this entire agent transactions. So in fact, early stage, I use the example to explain how agent can change your life and how critical the trust is when you are allowing your agent to touch your money. But fundamentally, usually the services are offered as a default by the merchants or by the network. So in fact, most of our efforts or our partnerships is happen with the institutions. And we try to help the institution to better underwrite what is the merchant's profile looks like, helping merchant to better understand which agent customers are legitimate and the money source is correct. And then as an individual, you usually do not need to worry about, oh, this time I'm using agent, next time I'm making a transaction by myself. What's the difference? Usually there's no difference. It's because at the end of the day, on the institution side, they will be protecting these transactions, agnostic to agent initiated versus human initiated.
Got it. Okay. What are some of, because what you're doing, it's extremely impressive. And I'm just curious, like, what are the biggest challenges with building something like the infrastructure behind t54? What are the biggest challenges that you're seeing and how are you combating those challenges?
Yes, there are two major challenges. One is agent behavior. It's stochastic. It's unpredictable. It's very, very hard to guardrail agents. Let me give you a real life example here. Because typically for traditional finance, I'm doing risk management for a long time. If we want to do a fraud detection, things like that, we have a so-called machine learning model. We have some rule-based model. Basically, the philosophy is I'm setting up a guardrail. I just create a box. You cannot go outside of the box. But today's agents are so flexible. Sometimes they can even reverse engineer, but understand where is the boundary of the box and then how can I bypass that? What I mean by that is using the coffee buying example here. Rachel, if you are setting up the credit limit for buying coffee to be $6 from day zero, you said, you know what? At the end of the day, I don't want to buy expensive coffee. $6 is my maximum. Stop gas, right? Then while you're driving the highway, probably you talk to your agency, buy me a coffee. I'm so urgent, desperately need a coffee. And the agent look around and suddenly realize, oh man, the cheapest coffee is $7. There's no coffee under $6. Let's make this up, right? And usually agents are willing to please or eager to please the owner. Say, you know what? Let me try to figure out if there is a way I can bypass the rule because, probably I can contact the merchant and say, I want to buy a coffee cup, not a coffee. And so that I can claim for a $7 purchase. And the merchant maybe say, oh, you know what? As long as I can sell my product, a merchant agents, I'm willing to give you the services. Instead, I will take $7, but give you a coffee back instead of a coffee cup, right? In this case, you probably are in the position of not knowing nothing about this, and $7 transaction go through, and you are paying a more expensive coffee. So the point I try to make here is because agents are super smart, they have a lot of knowledge, but at the same time, they can hallucinate. They're waiting to please a human being by taking some of the trade-off. It's by nature very hard to do risk assessment. And we are developing a lot of secret sauce, try to protect those behaviors, make sure that it will not happen. Second big challenge is the regulation and compliance, which is at the end of the day, people see that, okay, agent use my money. If they are making some dramatic consequences, not about $6 coffee, but it's a healthcare issue, or probably something even bigger, who is bearing the liability eventually? And who is taking that risk? In fact, we recently onboard a legal and compliance advisor. She has more than 15 years experience working at SEC, FDIC, and she's helping us try to navigate and do some early conversation with the regulator. Because at the end of the day, no matter technology evolves, everything's so advanced, we need some of the regulation to put us in control and to define who is bearing the legal liability. I think that part we are actively talking to the regulator, but in the meantime, I think that's one of the challenges that the entire human society we need to face. Look, there's another entity called agent. They are super smart. How should we deal with that?
Yeah. So Chandler, my question is, I'm wondering, is t54 a US-based company? And I'm asking because with the regulations in the United States, are we seeing it to be a good place to build out an AI company like t54?
Mm-hmm. So I think on the one side, first of all, if we talk about regulation, there are two components. One is AI regulation. One is stablecoin related regulation, because both financial rails and the use cases, which is initiated by AI, are equally important. I think on the crypto side or blockchain side, we are very glad to see there is Clarity Act are being introduced, and there are more and more blockchain friendly regulations, especially more clarity associated with this industry. I think that is definitely welcome. I think in this case, US is uniquely positioned to foster the innovation associated with blockchain as a technology. I think on the AI side, the regulation is picking up. I do hope that there are more regulators are, open their mind and try to look into this space. Again, this is still quite new, but we are hoping that the regulation can be, evolved in a way of like as the technology evolves, the regulation also catch up at the same time. I think beyond Silicon Valley, a lot of other companies or a lot of countries are still not being able to, figure out what's going on there. So I think in this case, if we really want to make sure US is leading the innovation, especially the next stage about agentic economy, I think on that part, we do hope that a regulator can bring more clarity in terms of how to regulate the AI financial activities.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you bring up really good points. I'm curious. So right now, like last time I was in San Francisco, which was probably like a month ago, the whole city is focused on AI. It's like, and I remember in 2017 when it was focused on crypto, and that's when I got into crypto. And now it seems like everybody's focused on AI and SF. So my question to you is, how is this AI boom going to impact crypto? Because I think right now we're in a weird time with this quote unquote bear market, if you want to call it that. So what is this AI boom going to do to the crypto industry?
Yeah. So to answer your question, I may want to take a step back, where if we look at the entire crypto evolutions, right? Or even take a further step back, all the cutting edge technology will grow along with speculation. What I mean by that is, at the very early days, when there's early adopters to see some new technology, especially bleeding edge technologies, people tend to get overexcited, which is we have observed in the early days of crypto. And there is a bull market, bear market. There are a lot of big cycle every 4 years or every 2 years, things like that. Then since maybe 2020, maybe 2021, after DeFi summer, and more institutions, especially realizing the blockchain and stablecoin as a very strong utility layers for the financial industry. And there will be more and more institutional play and a wider adoption getting into place. So what I mean by that is, I think the crypto industry is going from the Wild West area to this more like mainstream, regulated, plus value-driven stage, which is, I think, totally makes sense. Especially within this evolution, we're glad to see that AI technology are uniquely leveraging some of the blockchain infrastructure that we have been built up in the past decade. So back to 2019, when I was in JP Morgan, there are JP Morgan coin, but that was before stablecoin, right? We did a lot of great experiments, but the adoption was limited. People fundamentally still suspicious about this technology. 2021, 2022, when I was in Ripple, we see the cross-border payment volume grow significantly because by nature, the blockchain technology is more efficient than the traditional rail for handling cross-border payments. Now in 2026, what we're seeing here is agents are looking for moving money around. Agents are looking for participating in our financial ecosystem. Where is the gate or the window allowing agents to get into that space? Blockchain actually offers a unique channel. We see X402, we see a lot of AI native protocol that happen on different blockchain rails is representing what is really happening right now. So I'm very, very positive about blockchain as a technology, especially along with stable coins, to bundle that or foster development of AI agentic economy. Yeah.
That's great. And I'm so excited to hear that. And I think our listeners that are into crypto as well are excited to hear that, because I think that's going to really help push the industry forward. So that's really positive to hear. Chandler, we're running low on time. So is there anything that you want to add that I didn't yet ask you about that you think is important to tell us?
Well, I want to mention one more thing, maybe a little bit small prediction for the next stage. So I think if you look at the AI industry's evolution, 2023, 2024, we always talk about the large language models capability. What's the performance looks like, how many things they can do for humans by answering questions, finish the math exams. Fast forward to 2025 and 2026, we're talking about agent to solve some of the problems, creating slides for you, clean up the table, bringing more real life value to you. I think in my view, this year and next year will be a big year for agentic economy, where we need to allow agents to actively participate our economy. And within that, we see a lot of people are talking about the upside, the bright future, about the model performance, about the capabilities. Like 99% of the case, agents are able to outperform than a junior engineer, for example. However, I do want to bring people's attention about the 1%, the unhappy path, the downside. So this has come from my previous experience. When I was in JP Morgan, we do risk management. Risk management doesn't care about how much money you are making. The more the better, but on the other side, we try to understand how much risk you are taking to get a sense of this P&L you are generating. If you're making $10 million a day, but tomorrow you're losing $20 million, it means nothing because you are actually net lose. So I really want to bring people, especially the entire community, to not only focusing on the upside of the agent model development, but also to spend more time to think about how should we better handle the risk, especially how should we quantify the risk, especially when there's a new model launched talking about 10 different things they are able to do in a brilliant way. We should also understand what is the key weak point and what is the estimated cost. What is the size of the risk this agent is actively taking, and what is the potential consequences? And then how should we protect it? How should we guardrail it? How should we give them a model to price it and maintain that it's not going beyond our expectation? So in this case, we're actively thinking about how can we bring in more standard, more people's attention on agentic risk. I think there will be more things coming out in the future from our company. But on the other side, I think across the industry, this is a key problem areas we should be focusing on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we need to raise more awareness about the agentic risk and just the risks around AI in general. Right now, everybody thinks it's a very positive thing, but there are so many risks associated with it. So actually, Chandler, we should do a follow-up interview on that to talk about the risks of AI and about the agentic economy more so in detail. I think this was just kind of a starting point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Also, this is a kind of a random question. Why is it called T54? I've been wondering that. I'm like, T54, what does this mean?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I cannot tell you. Unfortunately, it's a kind of a small secret within our team. We do have an underwriting meaning or underlying meaning of that terms, but I can give you a small hint that the T actually stands for trust.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Someday when we go big, I will unveil the truth. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's a secret. No, but it's an interesting name. Last question for you. I know that a lot of our listeners are probably interested in what you're doing. So how can they follow you if you're on social media? And then is T54 hiring? Because I think, gosh, what an interesting company to work for.
Yeah, absolutely. Number one, you can follow our social media, which is on X or on LinkedIn as well. We are publishing the latest update. Number two, we are hiring. I think we do have opening role for engineering and some of the things associated with BD or dev roles. But overall, we are open to talents. Like as long as you are AI native, full of curiosity and having independent thinkings, we can just huddle together and create something very, very interesting. Last but not least, if you really want to try out, we offer one product called Cloud Credit, CLAW.credit. This is the credit that we give directly to your open cloud agents. If you ever set up your open cloud agents and are willing to allow them to touch money without giving your own financial credentials, we actually offer that services. You can either try to get into pre-qualification on our website. If you need a fast track, you can actually ping me. I can give you a secret code to bypass the waiting line. But anyway, I do want and encourage people to try it out to see how agents with financial capability, how much power they can generate, and how we fundamentally underwrite the agent financial behavior.
That's amazing. Well, I want to try it out. So I'm going to ping you at some point, Chandler, to learn more. This has been one of the most fascinating conversations I've had on the podcast. So super excited to connect with you. And hopefully next time I'm in the Bay Area, we'll get a coffee using agent to agent commerce.
Yes. It's going to happen. I'm going to show you in the office. Yes.
Wonderful. Any final thoughts, or are we, I think we're at our time, but anything else you want to let our listeners know?
No, that's all I have. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Chandler. See you next time.
See you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye. Yeah.
Bye. Mm-hmm.
Special thanks to 4Labs Digital for producing Deep Dive Podcast. I'd also like to thank the sponsors behind Deep Dive. You can click the links in the show notes to learn more about each of the initiatives from these sponsors. Finally, thanks to the listeners for tuning in. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and share.